So, we've got a batch of beer that we need to get into the keg. But how do you start? Where do you go? In this video, I'm going to show you how to prepare your keg for your batch of beer and make sure everything's sanitized, cleaned up, all spiffy. So, let's get to this. So what you're going to need to get your keg all ready to go, just a couple things here. I've got a one of the Easy Clean no rinse cleaners here. You've got your sanitizer. Obviously you're going to need to clean it, you're going to need to sanitize it. But there are some tricks to the keg. So you're going to need your big wrench. I found that the 7/8 works best for me. I've got ball lock kegs, and here's the top. Here's one of the keg posts, and you can see it's got the star shape. So it's important to get the wrench that's got the star on it. This end, no, that wouldn't work. So you'll need your keg wrench. It's always a good thing to have extra O-rings on hand, and I'll show you this once we get closer up, but all throughout the keg are a series of rubber rings, and so you're going to need to have some stuff on hand just in case you happen to notice one of your rings are cracking, or if it's completely missing one. They typically come in a pack like this: your main O-ring for the actual locking part of the keg. These two green ones here would be for the fittings here across the top of the actual post, and as well you've got a couple little tubes inside, so these extra black rings there are for these. So make sure you have one of those on hand. I think they're typically $3 to $5, nothing expensive, and it's worth having a couple packs on hand just in case you happen to, be missing a ring. And last but not least, some type of keg lube. It's a food grade waterproof lubricant. Again, you'll need it for your for the rings to make sure that they are getting the most contact, and it'll ensure an airtight seal all throughout your keg. So let's get to cleaning. So what you're going to need to do is essentially take your keg apart. Now this one is already clean. I've had it actually in storage for a while, but I did notice that I had some built up soda ash on the inside of it and some dust. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a full cleaning, a full inspection, and show you guys how to do this. So first things first, always pull your pressure release, make sure there's nothing in there. Pop this bad boy off. Because we're going to be cleaning everything, I go ahead and pop the ring off. This is your big O-ring. Saw that earlier. I also like to keep a small bowl handy just to toss these pieces into, because once you start getting into the small pieces, you don't want them going down the drain. You don't want to lose them. I have actually already gone ahead and loosened the keg posts with my wrench. Again, the star side for your in, the regular for your out. Pretty self-explanatory. I won't bother you with that one. But you just take it, screw that off, make sure you don't lose. There's a little poppet valve. That's what that little guy is right there. I try to just keep them together. You jam it in there. Sometimes it stays in. But again, that's what the bowl is for. As well, on the inside, you've got a very small post. So we'll take that as well. You can see there's some gunk built up there. Yeah, I'm going to want to clean that. The outside is a little bit different. Again, it's just a post. It's got the poppet valve on the inside. Preliminary inspection's looking fine. But the dip tube on your out is huge. Goes all the way to the bottom of your keg. There we go. Yeah, I can see some gunk on here. We'll get this cleaned up. But yeah, we'll just set that one aside. That won't fit in the bowl. Okay, so now we've got literally a keg with none of its components and a bowl of components. So what we're going to do, we are going to whip up some OxyClean, or I use LD Carlson's Easy Clean, just because I got a 5-pound bucket on it of it on sale, I think for only like $6 or something like that. So I was like, that's a hell of a deal, I'll take it. So we're going to whip up some cleaner, get it in here, and just give it a little scrub down. I always use the same sponge for cleaning all of my brewing equipment. Reason being, you don't want to use a sponge that you've used with dish soap or anything like that, because there's always the chance that it can screw up your beer. So I have a dedicated sponge for my Easy Clean cleansers. So yeah, we're going to whip up some solution now. We've got our Easy Clean. I typically just use a tablespoon. I found that there's no need to make a whole 5-gallon batch of this stuff. No need to waste it. Now we're just going to take our hose. I do not have one of the workshop style sinks, so I made my own hose here. Mix in about a gallon of water. I think it's a tablespoon per gallon. Delightful. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a quick wash down with the sponge, and then I'm going to take some of the solution and put it into my component bowl and just let everything sit in that for a few. So we'll just give this a mix. You could also wait to take the keg apart, leave all the components in sealed, put your lock in, and shake the hell out of the whole thing, which I actually will do as the last step while I still have some cleaner on hand. But because I was going to be actually scrubbing it down with my sponge, there was no need to just to do that first, because I was going to have to take it apart anyway. Because like I said, I did want to wash all the components and make sure that all the gaskets were sealing, everything was clean and sanitized. You typically don't have to do this every single time that you have a keg. You can just rinse it out with your cleanser, hit it with sanitizer, and it's ready to go. But every couple batches, I do like to completely, thoroughly clean the keg, make sure I don't have any hops stuck in any of the poppet valves, any funky stuff like that. And also it gives you a good time to inspect the keg, make sure that nothing's damaged. So, this part's pretty self-explanatory. Stick your hand in, and you scrub. You want to make sure to get underneath this lip here as well. Make sure you give it cleaning all the way around. If your arm doesn't fit all the way down in there, as I could imagine some larger folks than I would have the issue, then what you can do, you can certainly fill this bad boy up with Easy Clean solution, shake it around, let it set, just give it a shake, let it set, give it a shake, let it set. I mean, that's part of the purpose of the oxygen cleaners, is that they do most of the work for you. But because I had some built-on soda ash and stuff, I wanted to give it a scrub. You could also use a carboy brush. You could use really, whatever you want. Just don't use dish soap, and that'll ruin the head of your beer. You don't want that. Especially if you've spent time with an all-grain batch and you want it to have a nice frothy top. One last wet down. Get the top. Groovy. Now we'll take our components, give it a little pour. Don't have to be, it's not like you're pouring acid around, so you can splash it on the linoleum. Not gonna kill anybody. So we'll let that set. I'm gonna pop the poppets out to make sure that they're getting cleaned as well. And we'll hand scrub these guys. Again, nothing special. Just want to make sure you get everything nice and clean. Take on your dip tube and your gas in. Make sure you slide that piece down and get everything nice and clean. Poppet valve number 1. I'll give the poppet valves a look to make sure there's no hops or any gunk built up in the spring there. You can see spring. Don't drop it down the garbage disposal. Like I said, I knew that this one was pretty clean going into it, but it had been in storage, so I wanted to make sure that it was completely clean, completely sanitized. It was due up for a full washing anyway. Point in case. With these ones here, I don't actually bother trying to pull them out. They're in there really, really well, and it's hard to get out without destroying the gasket. So as long as your gasket's good, you know, you make sure that you get in there and make sure there's no junk built up. But that's the one that I really, really don't worry too much about. And then we've got the big dipstick here. Dip tube, I should say. Slide that down. And then just wash the whole tube. Whole thing. It did have a bit of gunk built up on it, so I'll make sure that it gets nice and tidy. And then once you're done, take everything out. I rinse it off even though it's a no-rinse cleanser. And just set it aside to dry off a bit. One thing I did forget to mention, your lid. You want to clean the lid too. Especially this lip here. That's where the gasket sits. Pressure release valve on the bottom. You'll see that little black dot. That's your rubber gasket for the valve. I typically will pull it up, give it a look, just to make sure there's nothing stuck in there. And again, if you don't want to do all the scrubbing, just put it in your OxiClean or your Easy Clean, and you just let it sit. Okay, so everything's pretty much dried now. So now what we need to do, we need to take our keg lube, this lovely gross stuff, and get this all sealed up. So you only use a little bit of it. I'll start with this one. But yeah, with this, I'm going to put it right around the edge here. Thin layer, does not have to be heavy by any stretch of the imagination. Just that easy. And now we'll take the big O-ring, put that bad boy on there, and then we will also lube the inside of the keg where this side of the ring will touch. Or you can just hit it now. Whatever you want to do. So you get the gist. And now what we're going to do, these guys right here, just slide them down. You only need a really, really small amount here. Get on the inside there. The ring. That one done. Main dip tube. Same scenario. Only a tiny amount needed. Done. You know, I have found too, the top part of the poppet valves right there. Just barely get those guys. And the reason being, I found that when I put too much on the poppet valves, it actually makes them leak. So I don't know if, yeah, I don't know if I just put way too much on or what, but only a tiny amount there. And then, same amount for these, just a tiny amount. You don't need a lot of this stuff. I have a feeling that this container of it, which is like an ounce, maybe, it's probably going to last me the rest of my life. So essentially what you're doing when you lubricate these rubber fittings, you're making them a little more supple so that way they can establish better contact and thus be more airtight, gas tight, CO2 tight, whatever. And it also helps prevent them from drying out and cracking, which will destroy them. So, just that easy. Now we're going to head to the keg, get this put back together. Okay, and then we're going to hit just the inside lip here. Okay, so your in gets the short tube. Pop. The out gets the big dip tube. Perfect. Then let's see here. We've got our out. Reinstall the poppet. Find the poppet's sticking a bit, just loosen it a tad. There we go. We've got our in. Okay, and now what we're going to do, grab our handy dandy wrench, tighten these bad boys down. You really want to make sure they get on there tight. If not, it sort of defeats the purpose of, you know. Actually, I think this, yeah, the star works on this side too. There we go. Take this, set her in there. Voila. Nothing leaking so far, so we're doing pretty good. So now I'm just going to shake this up a bit. Okay, so now what we want to do is get some of the cleaning solution that was left in here into this line. Now I know that this is sanitizer sitting in here, but we're going to go ahead and clean it out anyway. So we'll take our gas, pop it on there, give it a couple pounds. About 5. You don't need a lot, just enough to get some stuff flowing through this line. This will also pull the cleaner up through the dip tube, so you'll make sure that it's covered as well. So pop that bad boy on there. Oh, got it. Hopefully. Oh, there we go. We'll just let that run for a second. Delightful. Now I will just pop this one off, set it aside for now, because what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm just going to rinse all this out. You don't have to, but I like to. Release the gas, pop that bad boy out. Set that aside. Try to rinse, but also keeping in mind to not screw up all my lubricant that I put in there. Okay, so now the last step is just to sanitize, and for my kegs I always use iodophor. So we'll just measure out. Oh, let's see here, I always forget the amount. 1 ounce to 5 gallons. So because I'm only going to put in 1 gallon, I'm doing about 1/4 ounce. And remember, iodophor, you only use cold water. Cold. It looks like it's steaming, but that's actually CO2. Perfect. It's about 1 gallon. Take this. Pop it back on there. Give it a shake. Cover everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let this sit here now for 5-10 minutes. I'm going to give it a shake again. I'm going to flip it upside down, let it soak the top part, another 5-10 minutes. In between there, I'm going to pressurize the keg, and I'm going to then run iodophor through our line, so it's sanitizing as well. So once we are done with that, the keg will pretty much be ready to go. And at that point, you'll just put in your beer or whatever it is you feel like carbonating, soda, water, whatever you want, and your keg will be sanitized, clean, inspected, lubricated, and completely ready to serve. So with that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys soon.